relation tales. My wife cheated on me and left, saying it was just for fun, so I divorced her. Then she came back asking for help, so I did this. We had been married for 12 years. We got married pretty young, especially her, but it felt right at the time. We dated for a little over a year and felt sure we were meant to be together, though now I'm not so sure. I have a solid job running a successful jewelry business with my brothers. We built it from scratch, and it's very profitable. Working with family can be tough, but for us, it has been great because we don't argue much. My wife opened a cute cafe where people can get pastries, coffee, and read books. She's always been into books, which used to annoy me, but I ended up supporting her by helping pay the rent for her cafe. It's in an expensive part of town, but the business is doing well without worrying about rent, which made me happy. That's the background you need. Here's where the real story begins. I can't remember exactly when, but I think it was about in March that she came to me to tell me about how there was this new man that showed up in the cafe. According to her, he was very handsome. I was a secure person, and I found that the two of us can objectively talk about somebody's attractiveness without it becoming a big issue. However, there was something different about the way she kept going on about this guy. Supposedly, he seemed like the kind of masculine hero that she reads about and the kind of smut that women like to read. Yes, she's into those kinds of books too. Those all book talk type women seem to be, and I'll never get it, because it seems to be the cheesiest form of romance that gets them going. Anyway, she went on for a bit about this guy before it ended. But I will admit that the words she chose when she spoke about him were almost like how she would talk about the cold Russian hitman who fell for some woman in the laundry room of their apartment building. No, I didn't make that up. That's from an actual book that she finds interesting. Now, that was it for the day, but she let me know that he came in the next day, and they spoke at length. According to her, he was from Serbia, and he used to work as a car dealer, but he decided to come to the United States and search for a better life. It was taking him some time to get back on his feet and get his bearings. But he was looking for work at dealerships nearby because that was a work he knew how to do best. I learned in about 10 minutes that he was tall, blond, handsome, dressed well, and obviously spoke with an accent. Apparently, he loved to read books set in the Wild West and was a big fan of fantasy like The Lord of the Rings. She always tells me a lot about her cafe's patron, so it's not like this was out of the ordinary, but once again, there was a really flowery verbiage at play, and it seemed like she was almost fetishizing him in a way. At a point, he wasn't novel to her anymore, so she stopped talking about him at length. But it was clear that he was still a regular at her cafe, and it felt a lot better to me knowing that he didn't seem to be worthy of long spills every evening any longer. Hell, I even popped into her cafe one afternoon to bring her lunch, and I saw a guy sitting in the corner who fit the exact description. I was completely sure it was him, and I'll admit, he was a good-looking guy. She told me his name was Ivan. This is where things start to get a bit crazy. One night, she came home with a goofy smile, so I asked her what was up. She said Ivan had walked her home, and they talked a lot about books. She said he asked her out on a date, but she told him she was married and couldn't go. She said he was really apologetic, held her hand gently, said good night, and left. I asked why she was smiling so much about it, and she said it was like something out of a book. That really annoyed me because it felt like she was romanticizing every interaction with Ivan. I found out he was a customer at her cafe. There was no way they wouldn't keep interacting on almost a daily basis. I didn't want to seem insecure, and she could have decided to tell him that she didn't have a man. So again, I felt there was no need to talk about things despite the fact that I felt some kind of way about it. It was just my feelings I had to get over, right? It eventually became evident to me that this wasn't the case when my wife came home about a week later with a bouquet of flowers that she promptly put into a vase. According to her, it was a gift from Ivan. Nothing special. He said that he bought a bunch of fur coworker. He has a job now, by the way. It was her birthday, and he just thought it'd be nice to get me some because he always sees how hard I'm working. I felt my head get hot as she said that because she was trying to paint the situation like she was a schoolgirl who didn't understand when someone liked her. I asked her straight up whether she could tell that Ivan really liked her. She said it was obvious, especially after he asked her out. But she believed that the flowers were just a friendly thing. And that had me baffled because if you're a guy, you probably don't get flowers for a girl that rebuffed you. Even if it was because she was married, as a friendly thing, he was still trying to get in her pants, or maybe now trying to get in her pants and leave all the rest of the lovey-dovey stuff out of it. He was having an easy time with his advances, so at the time, I knew that he wasn't about to stop anytime soon. I was right because 2 days later, my wife came home much later than usual, almost 2 hours late, without letting me know. It wasn't the first time she was late, so I called her twice, but she didn't answer. Before I could call a third time, she showed up, acting very excited. "You won't believe the evening I had," she said. She went on about how she showed Ivan where the museum was. Then they got a slice of American pizza because he had never had it before and always saw it in the movies. They walked, talked, and ate pizza, and she told me all about it, even though I didn't really care. When she finished, I asked her if she was attracted to Ivan. She acted shocked and offended, saying she wasn't and that she was only attracted to me. She said she was just trying to be friendly to someone in a new country who had no friends or family around. I wasn't really convinced by all of this, so I told her straight up that she had to stop seeing Ivan. Yeah, that caused a big fight. Quite unsurprisingly, she talked about how it was being insecure, how there was nothing fair, how it should stop feeling threatened, and a lot more nonsense. I was pissed, but I was able to keep my wits about me and stop my temper from raging. I stood my ground, though, and told her that she should stop anything extracurricular with Ivan. It was fair if he came by her cafe because he was a customer, but things weren't supposed to go beyond that point. I told her to imagine what she would do in my shoes if some Serbian girl came to buy a bracelet and decided to take her to walking around town and all that. According to her, I'd understand. But I think we all know that's a lie, don't we? Long story short, I slept on the couch. No one is shocked there, but the good thing is that I stopped hearing about Ivan and all his drama, which was enough for my mental health. Again, I knew that she would be interacting with him at her cafe, but there was only so much that could happen there. And it seemed pretty sure that nothing was going on because she was heading back home at the regular time each night, which was good by me. I became very suspicious when I walked into my wife's cafe randomly one afternoon and she wasn't there. Neither was Ivan, though I couldn't have been sure that he would have been there at that time anyway, so that didn't mean much. But it did mean much that she wasn't there because that was very unusual. I thought of sticking around until she came back or asking one of her employees where she had gone. But I decided not to make a big deal of it. It was when I was getting back into my car from across the street that I saw her and Ivan coming up the street, arms interlocked. It took all my strength not to run across the street and beat up the guy or yell at her. But I stayed in the car, watched them walk into the cafe, and drove off. That happened yesterday, and I've been struggling to process it. I wanted to confront her right away, but I think there's power in knowing something the other person doesn't know, you know. It might help me catch more lies. When she got home, I asked about her day, and she described a pretty normal day without mentioning going anywhere with Ivan. This is why I'm here. Should I confront her directly, or should I try to find out more first? I'm leaning towards finding out more because I think something might be going on behind my back, and confronting her might ruin my chances of finding the truth. What do you think I should do? Update 1. Hey everyone, I'm the guy from the post about my wife, her cafe, and the Serbian guy. Well, I'm back with a pretty big update. Let's talk about it because I found a lot. It took me a bit to gain the courage, but I decided at a point that I had to find out the truth no matter what it would cost. I have never been the kind of person to smile upon the idea of checking your partner's phone, but in this case, I knew I had to put whatever moral conundrums I had aside and do it. So I did it at the first chance that I got, which was while she was asleep. Unsurprisingly, she had Ivan in her messaging app, and they had been talking a lot. It was WhatsApp, so it was easy for me to export the entire conversation to a text file, which I sent to my phone from her phone. I made sure to delete the evidence, of course. I looked through her gallery and found a few pictures of them smiling together in public places, but nothing extra incriminating. I sent those to my phone too. Again, evidence was deleted. It took me about 5 minutes to do all of that, and I put her phone back where it belonged. After that, I did all the reading on my phone, where it was a lot less suspicious in case you woke up suddenly. And boy, did I see things that made my head spin. Here's a transcript of one part of the conversation that you might find as appalling as I did. It came after a point where they were discussing some book that my wife had recommended to him. Let's call my wife Clarice instead of her actual name. In the way, the main characters reminded me of us, Clarice. Yes, that's what I thought too. The mysterious guy and the artsy girl torn between him and her boyfriend. And then a message right after that. Lots of steamy sex scene, too. That part especially reminds me of us. I agree, the sex is always good. But in your case, it's a husband. Laugh emoji. Laugh emojis from Clarice. Yes, and I think that's what makes it even more exciting and fun. It feels so wrong. I've never cheated before, but I can't say I really regret it. It's wrong, but that's what makes it so exciting. Yep, and I never want this to end. It drove me crazy. At 2 a.m., I left the house to go for a walk because I couldn't stay there. I felt like I would do something crazy. I thought I walked around town for 5 hours, but when I got back, it was only 3 a.m. She was still sleeping too. Do you know what it is like to find out you're being cheated on, but then to find out your wife is ridiculing you by actually enjoying doing everything behind your back? She was basically reveling in my ignorance of the situation, and that was the part that drove me over the edge. Not like cheating was going to be forgiven anyway. When I got back, she was still sleeping, so I grabbed her phone, jumped to that part of her conversation with Ivan, and took a video of it on her phone. I needed to make it very clear that there was no doctoring going on here. It was clear that Clarice felt like she was living out one of her stupid books, but it was absolutely despicable that I had to be a victim in all of it. She has no idea that I know this. The divorce is cooking up. There's really no other way for this to go. I also need to see her go down. I need to see Ivan go down too. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I need both of them to hurt, and I need them to hurt badly. Update 2. It's been done, and it was glorious. This is the final saga of the Serbian man Ivan and the book-loving, treacherous, cheating wife Clarice. In this whole thing, they had no idea they should have been a lot more worried about me than they were. Let me rush through the boring parts of the story. Clarice went to work one day, and I parked across the street in an Uber. I watched as the process server walked into the cafe and handed her the divorce papers in a very public manner. That was very pleasing, and after that, we drove off. I went to work, had a great day, and there wasn't a single message or missed call from Clarice by the end, which was very pleasing to me. She knew she had been made out, and there wasn't anything begging was going to do. At least that's how I saw it. Well, that night, she came back, crying rivers. It's not pouring out of her nose. She looked like an absolute wreck. Honestly, I felt a twinge of sadness seeing her like that, blaming it on the fragments of love that were left. But it didn't last long. She kept asking what she did wrong, and if it was about Ivan. I realized she didn't know how much I knew and was trying to figure it out. I wasn't sure if I should tell her I knew about Ivan, but in the end, I made a decision. I told her I saw her walking arm in arm with him that day and had been keeping it to myself. I didn't reveal anything else. Suddenly, she got bold and started half begging, half calling me stupid. She said there was no reason to divorce her over that, though she admitted it was wrong to keep seeing him. But no, there was nothing happening between them, and I was being insecure. I was being jealous. She couldn't tell whether to grovel or insult me, apparently. In the end, I told her to get out of my house, which she did. That's where the actual divorce phase. That part was loads of fun for me. I have a lot more money than her, which in a divorce means there's a lot more to lose. But it also means there's a lot more to spend on good lawyers, which I made sure to do. When you get a divorce, get a good lawyer. I promise you all that it is worth it, because not only did I have a lot of pictures of the two of them after a point where I had mentioned my concerns about it, but I had the text messages to clearly demonstrate the infidelity. On top of that, my rock star of a lawyer was able to point out transactions in her joint account that seemed to have been spent on Ivan. He aligned the dates on some transactions with dates in the entire text message transcript, where he thanked her for certain things, and it became very clear that she was spending our money on her Serbian lover boy. The lawyer did good work of painting her like a gold digger too, which was fun to watch for me. She fought her best, but honestly, there was nothing to point out for me. I am not a perfect guy, but I definitely don't have any divorce-worthy flaws. By the time the divorce was over, I really had everything that I needed. I kept my house, I kept my car, and because of that pretty notable infidelity and the fact that I had set her up with a money-making venture, there was no alimony requested of me. Love you, Judge. She got to keep the car I bought for her. I didn't stress about that because it made it easier to take what I took when she didn't leave the divorce empty-handed. Now, this is my favorite part. Getting back at Ivan was hard, but one day he was leaving the cafe, and I followed him down the road and around the corner. I called out to him, introduced myself, and punched him square in the jaw. It hurt like crazy, but I busted his lip and knocked him to the ground. He looked very shocked. I wasn't looking for a street fight, but I would have taken one if it came. I think he realized he had no moral high ground on this one because he stood up and left after that. It felt good. I wish I could have done more because he knew he was messing with a married woman, but that was enough for me. And probably all I could have realistically gotten without a felony charge. And then Clarice, you know that rent that I was paying for her, It was due again, and because she had her cafe in such a nice part of town, it was expensive. It was usually due on May 1st, but it was only towards the end of May that she came to me, crying on the phone, saying that she needed to pay the rent for the cafe badly, and she didn't have the money for it. She begged and begged and begged, but I told her to sell the car to get the funds for it before I hung up the phone. She called several times that week, but I didn't answer. Spoiler, I found out she sold the car when she called to curse me out. She said it was cruel that I wouldn't help her at her lowest point. I told her it was cruel to think cheating on me was fun and exciting. She had nothing to say to that. I'm waiting for May next year to see how she struggles with rent. If luck is on my side, she'll lose the cafe too, especially without access to my bookkeeper. It's been satisfying. Honestly, I'm newly single with a lot of money and a lot of satisfaction. I won't say the divorce, betrayal, and infidelity didn't hurt because it did, but you have to move forward, right? That's what I'm going to do. Thanks to all of you for sticking around and for your encouragement and advice. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll never have to write a post like this again. See ya? Second story. I'm so scared my BF of 2 years cheated on me. I've always been nervous about my boyfriend's friend, mostly because of my own insecurities. It doesn't help that there are signs and things I've heard about. Once, she called him babe in a drunk message, but he told her it was inappropriate when she was sober, and she apologized. Sometimes she's touchy-feely with him when I'm around, and I don't know what happens when I'm not there. Plus, he used to have a crush on her before we got together. We're open about finding other people attractive, but it bothers me that he doesn't seem bothered when he talks about her that way. The hardest part is that she's our roommate and our best friend's ex. They're okay now and even hang out in groups sometimes. Our roommate said if anything happens between her and my boyfriend, he won't be friends with him anymore. He mentioned my boyfriend making a joke involving him and her, and she responded that she could never do that to me. When I asked my boyfriend about it, he seemed confused and said he would remember saying something like that because he never jokes about things like that. Our roommate said what bothered him was that she didn't say she had a boyfriend. She just said the only reason she wouldn't do anything was because my boyfriend is taken. He wasn't paying full attention and didn't hear what my boyfriend actually said. I was okay with my boyfriend potentially being with her before, but he never did anything when she was single and I was okay with it. Now I wonder if he might have done something when I wasn't okay with it. He did tell me he had a dream where he cheated on me with her, which makes me worry he feels guilty about something. I really love him and don't want to lose him, but I'm scared something bad has already happened. I just need any thoughts or advice you have, please. Thank you.